You can now get the locking bundle on Greatlocs.com for only the price of the crochet hook. So if you have dreadlocks or plan on getting them, make sure to go to Greatlocs.com and pick yourself up these tools. Hey, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to an episode of Greatlocs. I'm Gunther the Great, and today we're taking a look at Lil Wayne's dreadlocks, and not only his dreadlocks, but we're looking at the recovery of them. Now, if you guys remember, I did post a video recently about Lil Wayne's dreadlocks and his hair loss, and there's really a whole lot that goes to it. So if you want to see that video, make sure to check it out on the channel. But I'm just going to list off a few things that actually happen that can actually result in hair loss. I would say the number one thing that happens with dreadlocks that results in hair loss is traction alopecia. Now, traction alopecia is where the hair follicle, or the pore in which the hair grows out of, becomes swollen and then eventually just chokes out the hair. Now, that happens from tension at the roots. And tension typically happens if you do a retwist too tight, or if you just have single hairs that are pulling too hard. This is why it's always important to comb out your roots before doing a retwist, because you don't want single strands of the dreadlocks pulling at the scalp, because then that can result in tension, which then results in traction alopecia, which then results in hair loss. So the best way to prevent that is if there's anything uncomfortable at your scalp, make sure to resolve it, and typically it's easy to resolve with using a comb. And the best way to explain it is just to release the tension. Now, another obvious reason why hair loss happens is because of genetics. A lot of times we typically do see someone who has a balding father. They typically will end up balding as well, but that isn't always the case. For me, I believe that's somewhat of a myth, and I think hair loss is very individual based. Another result in hair loss can also be drug use, and the list can really go on and on. But the biggest one is definitely traction alopecia, which is just tension at the roots, which really gets your scalp inflamed or swollen, and then causes the hair to fall out. So that's the biggest one that you guys can definitely prevent, and obviously don't do drugs. And like I said, I think the hereditary thing is just a myth, and you guys might think otherwise, but let's get straight into the video. The reason I wanted to appreciate Lil Wayne's dreadlocks in today's video is because it's actually really cool to see that he's keeping them. Now, not only did we see Lil Wayne go from freeform dreadlocks to extremely maintained dreadlocks, and that was about 10 years ago, could have even been longer. And then just recently, about 3 or 4 years ago, he started freeforming again. And then we see him starting to bleach his hair, and then we started to see his hair loss. And I honestly believe that his hair is somewhat recovering. Now, of course, there's many speculations on how he's actually losing his hair, but by looking at some of these photos, it looks like it's almost getting thicker, which could possibly be the case, especially if his hair loss came from an actual cause. Now, of course, there's other things that go with it, like a receding hairline, which that can't be recovered unless you were to do a hair transplant. That's a whole other story. We're even starting to see that he has dreadlocks that are forming on the top of his head. Not only that, but it looks like the hair on the top of his head is actually getting thicker, which is a good sign of his hair growth. But I will say, guys, if you notice any tension or you've noticed any sort of hair loss, backtrack what you've been doing and try to reverse the process. And you have to catch it early, because if you keep putting pressure on your scalp, it's just going to be a snowball effect on your hair coming out sooner than you would like it to. And my theory on Lil Wayne's dreadlocks, and the reason we don't see any more dreadlocks on the top of his head, is because he was having that hair loss and he didn't want to put any more tension and traction on the top of his head. So they cut them so that there wouldn't be any more pulling at the scalp, which then results in his hair actually being able to recover. So that's what I'm telling you guys. The moment you realize that you have tension or traction or any swelling or any form of hair loss, figure out what the problem is and solve it. And do it as quick as you possibly can. But another thing we see with Lil Wayne as well is that he does have his hair bleached, and it does look very similar to the way Lil Durk's hair looks, and also Young Thug's. Now, of course, bleaching the hair during hair loss is pretty counterintuitive, because you want to protect your scalp as much as possible. But I think I see what's going on here. And even if this isn't the purpose, this is something that you guys can look at as well. With bleaching the hair, it lightens up the hair color, almost bringing his hair to match his skin tone, especially at the roots, which then results in his hair appearing a little thicker because it's not as dark, so it's less noticeable. So that could be the case, because when we started seeing his hair loss was when his hair was darker, and the hair being lighter could possibly be tricking the eye. But then again, I don't want to say that his hair isn't recovering, because based on the looks of it, it looks like it is. And I really wanted to make this video to encourage you guys, if you're experiencing any tension at the root, just take care of it as soon as possible, and there's plenty of ways to do it. And it doesn't result in you actually having to cut your dreadlocks. One thing that I mentioned earlier on in this video is to comb out your roots. And I think the better way of saying it is to comb through your roots. And that just allows the weight to evenly be distributed throughout the dreadlock, versus on single strands in the hair. And of course, you want to prevent this at any cost by first off not being afraid all the time of thinking that your hair is going to be falling out, but of course taking those steps to make sure that it doesn't happen in the first place. And ways of preventing that is making sure that there's no tension at the roots, making sure if you bleach the hair not to bleach it all the way down to the roots, and protect your scalp at all costs. Try to minimize buildup, and of course that's done by washing the hair, making sure that the scalp is very clean, and also getting on a good schedule as far as washing the hair. But what do you guys think about Lil Wayne's dreadlocks? Do you think they're making a recovery? And I feel like it's one of those things to where it's growing on me to where the hairstyle is actually looking really good. And for me, I really appreciate freeform dreadlocks, and all around I really appreciate everyone's dreadlocks because everyone's typically look different. And in this case, they definitely look different and they're very unique to him. And it's becoming kind of an iconic look on him. But I want to hear you guys' thoughts down below. So make sure to leave those comments. And don't forget, if you need any dreadlock tools, make sure to go to Greatlocs.com and pick yourself up some. But other than that, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.